Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Shannon Gallo.
There, try now.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Unleash the Power of Social Media for Your Job Search, a webinar presented by CUNY SPS. We're going to get started in just another minute or two. Could you please take a moment and type into your chat field and let us know that you can see the blue title slide and that you can hear my voice clearly? Thank you very much, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us. My name is Shannon Gallo. I am the Manager of Career Services here at the CUNY School of Professional Studies. I'm going to be co-presenting today's webinar with my colleague, Anthony. Anthony Sweeney is the Associate Director of Student Life here at CUNY SPS, and we're really excited to talk with all of you today about social media and how you can unleash the power of social media for your job search. Right off the bat, just a couple of housekeeping items. If you have any technical trouble during today's webinar and you need to reach the GoToWebinar company, you can call 1-800-263-6317. Press 1 for GoToWebinar and then 2 for technical support. We will be answering your questions at the end of our webinar today, so we hope that you'll take a couple of minutes and send those in. You can send them in through the chat field at any time. So if we're talking about something and you have a question, send in your question, and we'll be trying to get to those questions at the end of the webinar. We'd like to thank our colleagues, Kelsey Richardson and Darian Robinson, for helping us with the tech piece of the webinar today. So they'll be taking down those questions and handing them off at the end of our presentation. Lastly, I wanted to mention that we are offering a live stream of captions as today's webinar goes. So you can find the link to that on your screen as well as through the chat field if you would like to watch that live stream. And once again, I hope that you'll send us some questions so that we can go over those at the end of our webinar. So on today's agenda, I've just given the brief introduction. We are approaching today's webinar with the idea and assumption that most of our attendees have at least profiles on one or more social media sites. And so we're not going to cover sort of the bare bones basics of setting up profiles, and instead we're going to talk a little bit more in detail about some of the specifics that we recommend in using these tools for job search and professional development. If you do have questions specifically about sort of developing a profile and some of those basics, feel free to reach out to us in the Office of Career Services or Anthony in Student Life, and we're happy to talk you through some of those things. But for today's purposes, we're going to focus more on some specific things you can do with profiles to enhance your job search. So first, we're going to talk a little bit about the pre-search and what you can do on an ongoing basis before your job search, about cleaning up your profiles and making sure they're updated regularly. We're going to go over some tips about networking and branding and how you can be doing a number of things with social media to enhance your networking and personal branding. Then we'll talk about using these tools during the active job search, and we'll end up with a list of some of our fabulous favorites. So without any further ado, I'll get started. So pre-job search and sort of continuously, cleanup is crucial. Even if you use Facebook or Instagram, for example, more on a personal sort of friendly networking type basis, it's important to keep that type of social media clean. You just never know. Even if you delete something from a social media profile, it's still out there. And sometimes if an employer is savvy, or even if they're just sort of Googling some different things, you don't want something to pop up that doesn't show you in the best light. The other thing is that you really have control over your own profiles, but only if you're updating them and using them regularly. Recruiters are going to be looking online and regularly searching on sites like LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and others. So you want to make sure that you're ready and that you've been updating those profiles regularly. The other piece of it is that everybody's busy with classes and home life and hobbies and work, of course. So if you can take the time to make small updates here and there as they happen, it's easier than having to go back and make large-scale changes every time you have a major milestone. So that's why it's important to update pre-job search as well. Your skills might change, your job might change, you might get a promotion, you continue through more coursework, or maybe you graduate. Make sure that as these things are happening in your life and in your professional world, that you make those changes to your LinkedIn and to your other social media profiles so that you're doing them in real time. The other thing about that is typically, especially on LinkedIn, a lot of these things will show up in the activity feed for recruiters and other people. So that will pique their interest, and it may even encourage them to click on your profile because you're making some changes and updates, and they may not have otherwise looked on your profile. So that's why it's important, as we always advise, to update your resume on a continuous basis. That is the same thing with your LinkedIn profiles and other social media. Another certainly important and crucial aspect of a professional development and job search is networking. You hear it all the time. It's very, very important to be connecting with people and establishing your network and building and maintaining those relationships. The whole idea that networking is a two-way street is important to keep in mind. And as you approach social media, make sure that you remember helping others is effective and that they'll help you. So take the time to use your social media profiles and update your LinkedIn and go onto the site and participate on the site regularly. And you'll see, as you're helping others, the next time you might need it, you'll be able to accept help from them. Finally, when I'm talking about networking, I wanted to mention that we have a host of career services recordings that are available on the SPS YouTube channel. You can find those on our playlist, and you can see everything from personal pitch pointers, strategies for job fairs, resume and interviewing tips, and all sorts of things available on there. You can get there easily at sps.cuny.edu/career videos. Now I'm going to turn things over to Anthony and let him talk for a little bit.
Hi, everyone. This is Anthony. Branding is really important for social media, and it can be really difficult for people to sort of navigate how to figure out how exactly to brand themselves. But being part of the SPS community, there's several opportunities for you here to create and manage online content that will later feed your personal brand on social media. To start, there's no better way to collect your professional content than e-portfolios. You can create them for individual courses or for content relevant to your major. But in the end, you have a website that houses pages and pages of text, photos, videos, graphs, and more that can easily be turned into posts on LinkedIn or tweets on Twitter. If you haven't used e-portfolios in your course, know that they're available to all current students. Whether your professors are currently using them or not, they are available to you. Everyone can have an account on ePortfolio. So get in touch with me later and I'll connect you with the right person here to get you set up there. And as the Student Association here at CUNY SPS grows, students are getting more and more involved in activities like the Kiosk, our online news publication. There's CUNY conferences and other events around our community that students are participating in. Use these opportunities as moments to share on social media. Get involved with the leadership of the various groups, and they become professional ways for you to connect with the larger CUNY community. And it shows potential employers that you have a genuine interest in your field. The goal here is to build an online persona that is both authentic and knowledgeable. And we hope you can start here within the CUNY SPS community.
So now that we've talked with you a little bit about the things you should be doing pre-job search and sort of on an ongoing and continual basis, we'll talk a little bit about what you can be doing on these different social media tools during your active job search. So I'm going to go over LinkedIn stuff first. I'm going to show you some things on the site, give you some pointers here on what you can do with your profile to, really use it effectively in your networking. So give me just a minute and let me pull this up. Okay, so I'll use my own profile as an example to just sort of give you some ideas. The idea with your LinkedIn profile is to really sort of make a mirror of your resume, but add more. With LinkedIn, you have the ability to put a lot more detail than you really should be putting on your resume. And what you can do is on your resume, you can put just sort of a little snippet of certain types of things, and you can include the link to your LinkedIn profile so that will leave the employer wanting to see more when they look at your resume, and that will entice them to go to your LinkedIn profile, whereby they can see more information. Certainly it should mirror your resume, but you can add more things like skills, different credentials that you've earned. You can also include coursework or other projects that you may have worked on. This is really a nice way to sort of, like I said, enhance the brand that you're putting out, in addition to just a resume and a cover letter. Some of the other types of things that you can do with your LinkedIn profile, you can really establish better credibility with endorsements and recommendations. Here on my particular profile, you can see that I've got a number of skills and endorsements listed. I've got, if you click to see them all, I have quite a few skills that I've listed, whether they're interpersonal skills or industry knowledge base and those kinds of things. And this is far more than what I would list on my resume in terms of my skills. I would probably focus more on my resume on the technical types of skills. But what you can do on your LinkedIn profile is really control how these are shown so that the things that you want to be highlighting are highlighted. So let's say right now the top skills listed on my profile are resume writing, interviews, and recruiting. But let's say I'm really interested in highlighting my program development skills instead of recruiting knowledge. So I would remove this skill from my top skills and I would instead add program development. So then that leaves those three skills at the top of my at the top of my skills section. And when someone is perusing my profile, they have the opportunity to endorse that I have this particular skill set. So maybe if I leave program development to live a little bit longer on this skills section, I'll see that more of my contacts start endorsing me for that particular skill. You can do this with your job search. If you're trying to make a career change from an administrative position to a data science position, maybe you would want to move data science skills to the top section of your skills section, and then hopefully you would get more endorsements. Another thing that's important with your LinkedIn profile is to really maximize the real estate in the very top section of your profile. And this is important because when recruiters and others are searching on LinkedIn and they do keyword searches, they see people listed and they only see this top section of their profile. So that's why it's important to make sure that everything there in the top section really catches the eye of the person who's looking. And I've chosen to use Anthony's profile because I think he has a nice, unique, interesting cover photo, a professional profile photo, and he also did a great job by using this section right here underneath his name more of an effective way than many people use it. The default in LinkedIn is that this section here simply repeats whatever your current job title is. But I recommend changing it to be something a little bit more catchy and unique so that when someone's looking at his profile, they can easily see that he is a university administrator, which is aligned with his title, but he's also a community builder and a film distributor. So I think it's important for you to use this piece of real estate to really sort of set yourself apart from others. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. The other important thing about LinkedIn is to make sure that you build your network wherever possible. So this doesn't just mean you connect with your boss and a couple of coworkers. This really means that you take the time to connect with all sorts of people that are in your network, either virtually or in real life. So that means connecting with your family and your friends, acquaintances, friends of friends, coworkers, supervisors. Another group of people that a lot of, I think, students and graduates forget about are their classmates and their instructors and advisors here at CUNY SPS. So when you're trying to develop your LinkedIn profile and establish a stronger presence on the site, it's important to keep in mind that you never know when you connect with someone professionally on LinkedIn how that personal relationship you have with them may benefit you or them if you connect on LinkedIn. Couple of other things you can do on LinkedIn in addition to your online job searching on other sites such as Indeed or other company websites. I'd really recommend that you use LinkedIn to search for jobs. So that means actually clicking on the job section, typing in some sort of search term. I'm going to use, let me use recruiter as an example. Because I think a lot will come up in my search. Okay, so I just typed in recruiter and I got a number of listings that have come up as being falling under that particular search term in that location. So let's take a quick look at one of these easy apply sites. This particular job is posted on LinkedIn. It has information here, and LinkedIn's been getting really, really good at, sort of supporting you in your job search and helping you to understand where you fit best. So I've opened up this particular job, and it has information about the person who actually posted the job. So we're second connections. I could research further to see who it is that we are mutually connected with, and perhaps I could reach out to that person and ask for an introduction. This also shows me that I have 3 top skills that this particular job requires. So that's helpful to know how closely I match with these requirements. This gives more information about this particular organization. If I felt very serious about applying for this job, then I might decide that I'm going to go ahead and follow this particular company, so that if their recruiter looks back on my profile, they'll see that I've taken the time to follow the company, which may mean I've taken some time to research it as well. And if I did decide I wanted to apply, I would click Easy Apply. And this will ultimately send as an application my profile, but it also gives me the option to upload my resume, which I would definitely do, because then when the company gets my application, they have my profile with all those details about my skills and my projects, but they also have my resume. So, it really allows you to provide a full picture of yourself as a qualified candidate. So that's why I recommend using LinkedIn Jobs as much as possible. Even if you see a job posted on another site, go to LinkedIn and see if you can find it there and apply. The other important thing about LinkedIn is to use it to research people and companies and organizations. So anytime you get a job interview, you want to make sure that you look up the person that you're interviewing with. If, for example, I was interviewing for a job and I was going to be meeting with Anthony Sweeney, I would go to his profile and see what I could find out about him there. I can see that he's been working in his role for more than 6 years, so he's been very loyal to the organization. I can see that he has other interests in film and theater and things like that. So this gives me some ideas of the type of person that I might be meeting with. It also can make you feel a little bit comfortable going into the interview if you have an idea of what that person looks like and where they're coming from. The other thing is that you can do research on companies, industries, all sorts of things on LinkedIn. And it's one of those things where if you go in and start searching, don't be surprised if you get stuck on there for a while, because you sort of can find out so much information that you don't want to, that you really can't believe it. It really is helpful to use it when you're applying and interviewing for jobs. The last thing I'll show you is a couple of things about your settings. And I bring this up because many times when I ask a job seeker, tell me about LinkedIn, what are you doing on LinkedIn? And they say, I'm not using LinkedIn, I'm afraid for my privacy. And that's certainly understandable, and it's a valid point. LinkedIn has really done a good job of allowing you to have control over a lot of those kinds of things. And I think that, if you can get to a point where you are comfortable using the site, it really makes, it's a good idea to, check all of your different preferences. So basically I went into account and security, and I'm looking at all of these different sections. You can look at the login information, you can set your preferences, you can decide which particular email addresses you're using for which sites. This section here is very important, the privacy section. You can decide how people see your profile, whether you're connected with them or not connected with them. You can decide who will actually see your connections. So if you don't want anyone else to know who else you are connected with, you can block them from seeing that. I prefer to allow my connections to see my other connections because I like to use LinkedIn a lot to help our students and graduates. So it's important to me that they can see that I'm connected with other people and who they are. But that may not be the case with you. So take the time to make those decisions within your profile and make sure that you're using it as openly as you can without being uncomfortable with the privacy settings. The other part of this that I think makes a lot of sense is that if you are conducting a confidential job search, that some of these things you want to make sure are not visible to your network. So if you're making profile edits, you might choose no, so that when you make a change to your profile, it doesn't start showing up on your boss's activity feed that you've been updating your profile. If you have questions about these different settings and what makes most sense, please reach out to us in Career Services, and we'll be happy to talk you through some of those things. Last but not least, I just wanted to mention that LinkedIn seems like it's intimidating if you aren't using it too frequently, but if you start slow and you just do a little bit here and there, it's something that I think can be very, very useful. I definitely know of people who have found job search success using LinkedIn and only LinkedIn. So, I certainly recommend that if you are sort of thinking about taking the plunge and really using it actively, that you definitely give it a try. Now I'll turn things over to my colleague, Anthony, so that he can tell you about some of the other social media tools and using them for job search.
Thanks, Shannon. So while I'm going to show you how to use Twitter, Facebook, and maybe even Instagram for your job search, I'm going to reiterate that I think LinkedIn is the social media platform for job search. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, these kind of give potential employers and others a look at the whole you, and I think it's important to build your online profile with these sites, but definitely LinkedIn is the one that you want to use for a job search if you're going to choose one. So if you're killing the job search and recruiters are using social media to look you up, there's nothing worse than finding an inactive account. During an active job search, you need to post at least 3 times a day, maybe even 5 if you have the time. So you have to keep in mind the way Twitter works. Tweets appear chronologically in a news feed. When you post a tweet, it stays on your personal page forever, but it appears in other people's feed for only a few moments. As long as I'm looking at it, when I scroll on Twitter, I scroll through tweets and they disappear almost within seconds, and I'm likely never to see them again. As more tweets come in from other people, yours gets pushed down. So you want to be able to show up as often as you can throughout the day. Twitter is the social media site to establish your credibility as an expert in your profession. More and more people use Twitter to get local and national news, more so than ever. And so more and more people are looking at Twitter on a daily basis. So you might have somebody who's in the position to hire you for your next job, or to introduce you in a professional setting to your next employer. They're going on Twitter to get their news, but if you're connected, you're going to show up on their feed, staying relevant to them. So create a Twitter account around important industry events, new research, and the hottest trends. Retweet the experts you follow. And over time, you read an article that pertains to your industry, treat it as you would a discussion board assignment in a class, for instance. So everybody remembers being in Blackboard, you're given an assignment to read, and then you need to write a short discussion board reaction to it. Do that same sort of assignment as you would when you're reading the morning newspaper or when you're reading your industry journal. Take a few minutes after you're done reading it and share 2 or 3 important takeaways from the article. You might even break it up into 2 or 3 different tweets to get more impact out of it. Part of building credibility is finding the right people and organizations to follow. For example, if you work in film, you're going to want to follow people or organizations like the Hollywood Reporter, Lee Daniels maybe, or the Film Society of Lincoln Center. These are all experts in the field. They're the ones who share original industry content that will be relevant to your job search. They help you stay current on the trends, and on Twitter, they're an excellent source for retweets. When you start building a significant number of accounts that you follow, consider making lists and putting each account into its own category for future reference. So I'm going to take a minute and I'm going to go to Twitter so I can show you this one right here. So this is the CUNY SPS Twitter account. I hope you're all following it, and if you're not, then you should. When you're here, when you're in your own account, and company profiles and personal profiles on Twitter look exactly the same. So when you're here, if you want it, you can go underneath your profile and hit lists. And you can see that we've already started building lists. Here, we use lists for different reasons. Our marketing department might use lists to build different organizations that we want to reach out to. I might build lists to reach out to organizations that might offer students some resources. We've created a list around everyone around CUNY that we could find we put in here. So it's a really great way to for a shortcut to get to the content that you want to know. So for example, if I wake up in the morning and because I'm a CUNY employee, I want to know what's going on around CUNY, I can come to my list, I can click here, and I'm going to get a personalized news feed of all the latest CUNY relevant tweets that have appeared. These are coming from all the CUNY accounts that I've identified as wanting to follow. And so it's a great way to just skim through right at the beginning of the day and see what's going on around CUNY. Again, if you want to create your own lists, you would come here back to the list page. You hit create new lists. And so let's say we're starting work with the Disability Studies program. And we want to find resources for all of our students in the Disability Studies program here in New York City. You can create a list name. You can have a short description. That's optional. And then it's also optional to have it public or private. A private list might be something that you would use to do research around a hobby or something that you're not sharing with other people. And the public list will appear on your Twitter feed. But also part of being a public list is that when you add accounts to it, those accounts get notified that they're part of your public list, which is a great way to get yourself noticed by industry experts. So I can just save this list. And now I want to find people that I want to add to this list. So I'm going to look for all the disability services organizations around New York City. There's two that pop up immediately. So you can click here and you can say add or remove to lists. And then I'll scroll through all my lists, and here's the one we just made. And I'm adding them to the list. I know that looks like a little bit of a glitch going on in Twitter right now, but now they're added to that list. Let's see if I find some disability services. Let's see if I just search for disability. Part of it is, you're going to keep searching different keywords. Within disability services, you can search for disability services, disability accommodations. Like Shannon said earlier, you can really spend a lot of time in here, but in the end, it's worth it because you start to find more and more stuff that's relevant to you. So now these are all the disability-related accounts on Twitter. And I would just start going through. You could either start following people. I'd recommend following them if you're going to put them into a list, and then add or remove them to your list. And you can just keep going. You can add them to multiple lists. You can add them to one list, and now they're there. So there's also another feature that I wanted to point out within Twitter is the search bar in the top menu. It's a great way to find companies and industry professionals that you're going to want to connect with. It's also a great place to look for events and other activities related to your career. So I work at CUNY. So again, let's look up we'll just do a search for CUNY. These are all the CUNY accounts. These are all they call them people, but these are all the accounts that are located around CUNY. And I see one that we're not following, so I'm going to take an opportunity to follow them. And so what this means is now we're following all these CUNY accounts, which means every time I log into Twitter, I'm going to get a personalized news feed with all of their information. So if I am looking for a job at CUNY, this is a great way to know what's going on this upcoming week, if there's any events, info sessions, if professors are holding lectures, anything that's going to get, in a professional way, that's going to get you networking with people at CUNY, you're going to find it here. So there's also, that would be searching for different profiles. If you wanted to search for anywhere that the word CUNY showed up, use the hashtag symbol, and now you're searching for the hashtag. And we're going to go here. And now we're going to start seeing all of the tweets, the recent tweets that have come up that have the word CUNY hashtagged. Again, it's a different way of getting there, just clicking on the hashtag within a tweet. And this is great. So right off, we see this career success initiatives. This is anybody on November 9th, they're holding an info session. So if I was interested in attending this, what I would do is I would retweet this from our account. Because now what I'm doing is I'm bookmarking that. I'm not only sharing that tweet with the larger community, which gets the attention of career success initiatives, because keep in mind, they know who retweets them. But I'm also bookmarking it for myself. So November 9th, I remember there's an info session, but where was it? I can go onto my Twitter account and I can look for it here. And now all the information for that info session's here. It's just a nice way of bookmarking all of the relevant information that you want to use for your search. So that also leads into part of being active on Twitter is being sure that you retweet, favorite, and comment on other people's posts. This is how you engage with companies. You're also going to start to get the attention of other users who will follow and engage with your account. That's how you start to look like the expert. Keep in mind that you always want to be yourself. Be a well-rounded person who shares industry-specific content, but also show off your hobbies and likes. I might tweet about film, food, and traveling as much as I tweet about CUNY, higher education, or social media, because it shows a potential employer, if I was looking for a job, that I'm a real person. It's also going to make me a little bit more approachable by a potential employer or by somebody who wants to professionally network with me. So after a while, you're going to get comfortable on Twitter. And tweeting a positive review about a movie you just saw or sharing an article relevant to your online community will feel 100% comfortable. I know it's going to start off awkward, but once you get used to it, once you get into the habit of tweeting, it does start to become very comfortable. Just don't make the mistake of getting too comfortable. If your morning commute was anything like mine has been the past couple of days, please resist the urge to overly criticize or publicly humiliate the MTA. While it might feel good in the moment, and you might even get a response, that tweet has the potential to derail your job search. And it's going to stay on your account, not just today, not just tomorrow. It'll be there in a year. So when a potential recruiter or a potential job employer starts doing research on you and they see that you've gone, berserk on the MTA multiple occasions, it says something to them about your personality. And it might not be how you want to come across. So just keep that in mind and keep that in check. So Facebook. Facebook, just like LinkedIn and Twitter, is a great tool to stay connected with industry experts and companies that you want to work for during a job search. Many of us use it to stay connected to our personal relationships, like my aunts and uncles, my cousins, my brothers, my sisters. Therefore, it's important to maintain a professional page that highlights you as a well-rounded person, while recognizing that you're not always comfortable to have future employers looking at photos of your family barbecue from last night. So I thought it would be helpful to take a moment to look at the privacy settings on Facebook that can allow you to do both. So here's my Facebook page. What you want to do is when you open up your Facebook, go to your profile page, which is when you click your name. And then up here in the right corner under your cover image, there's these three dots. When you click on that, you can click on timeline settings. This opens up all of the settings within Facebook. Just like Shannon showed you in LinkedIn, it's very similar. All these apps operate in a very similar way. So here, you can choose who can follow you on Facebook. You can choose who sees your posts. You can see who tags you. There's nothing worse than spending a nice weekend at the beach, waking up on Monday morning, and there's a picture of you in your bathing suit on the beach. I don't appreciate it. Some people do. I don't. But if you're doing a career search, it might not exactly be the kind of images that you want on your timeline. So all you have to do is look at each of these, review each one, and click on Edit. Now this is going to allow me to choose who can tag me in a post that appears online. If I want anyone to be able to tag me publicly, I would choose this. You can go through and you can decide which one of these is comfortable for you. I'm going to say only me because, again, I use my Facebook a lot for professional activity, and I don't really want other people being able to tag me. Once you've looked at who can tag you and your timeline settings, I also think you should go back and look at your privacy settings. Here, this is going to give you control over who sees your posts. And again, it's the same thing. You want to click on edit and you want to decide who can publicly see your posts. Is it everyone? Is it just your friends? Or is it friends except? So let's say I want all of my friends to see my posts, except sometimes I don't want my work friends to see my post. So I can go here and I can search for Shannon and I can add her to a list. I won't do it because I don't need to, but I could add her to a list of people that I don't want seeing my posts. So Shannon has no knowledge that I've done that. Keep this in mind, that the people on the other end don't know that they've been added to these lists because Facebook keeps that private only to you. So when Shannon looks at my profile, she's only going to see the posts that I've allowed to be public. She won't see the posts that I will do from my family vacation or from anything that I might share that's not exactly professional. But she'll see only those professional posts that I want her to see. Facebook actually gives you a lot of power to do that, so it's worth going through and looking at these settings. The last thing that you can do in terms of, because again, Facebook is a powerful tool for searching companies, following companies that you potentially work for one day, but it's also largely used for personal information. So one other way that you can sort of protect yourself is by going into, and this is a little bit more time consuming, but you can go to each individual friend, highlight it, and you can add them to a list. So just like Twitter, you're creating lists of people. This is my brother, so he wouldn't mind me showing this. So he's my brother, so I'm going to add him to my family list. So now what happens is every time I want to create a post, oops, no spaces, sorry. When I want to create this post, I can share it and I can say, well, who's going to see it? I can go down here and I could say, I can pick from either specific friends except, or I can customize it and I can list here family. I can say who I don't want to share it with. So let's say I don't want to share this with family. Save those changes, share it. Now I know that everybody on my Facebook page sees this except my family. I'm going to go back and delete that because there's no reason for me to hide things from my brother, but that's just an example of how you can get that done. So the idea here is keeping professional status updates that are public and then keeping family and friend updates that are private. And again, Facebook really makes it easy for you to separate the two. So take some time to like the company pages and industry experts and send friend requests to people in your field who you have met before you start the job search. This will ensure that you're getting daily updates on their activity. Take some time to read them, and they actually might become your conversation material for your next professional networking activity. The last social media site that I'll show you that we'll take a quick look at is Instagram. It might not be the first app I would use to find a job, but it's a great tool to showcase your personality. And if you're in a creative field, this is the app to use to share your ideas through photography, graphics, and video. It's also a great app to explore a company's culture. So if I were to get a job, if I was looking for a job at Google, their Instagram account is a wealth of activity that shows me what Facebook is concerned with, what their culture of their company is, their company profile. And right off the bat, there's already one thing that sort of continually pops up. Besides all of their products, they have something called the Doogler. And this one doesn't have the tag in it. Google obviously likes dogs. It's part of their company profile. They've even created a hashtag for it, the Doogler. So clicking on that hashtag brings you to a list of all the Dooglers out there, people that have posted pictures of their dogs. If I was trying to get a job at Google and I was using Instagram, I might do something similar to this as a way to grab their attention. That's what hashtags are for. They will see it. I might even tag Google on this, on a photo, because they'll see it. So those are just a few ideas, but if you take a look, they do a really good job of, they're showing who people are at Google while also selling their products. They are a brand, they are selling. So it's just Instagram's a nice way, almost like Pinterest, to be able to get a little deeper dive into the culture of the company. So some of my final thoughts on these three social media platforms is that I would commit to posting on 1 or 2 social media platforms and ignore the rest. Don't feel the pressure to be on every social media site. Because like I said at the start, if you have an inactive account, it looks worse than just not having an account at all. If you already went ahead and set up accounts on Pinterest, on Google, Google Plus, which is defunct now, but on Instagram, on Snapchat, and you find yourself only using Facebook, delete the other accounts. Don't feel the pressure to post there. Commit to maintaining a Facebook account and a LinkedIn account. Always keep a LinkedIn account if you're looking for a job. And then a little bit more advanced, which I'm happy to talk to individuals with, if you wanted to make an appointment and meet with me, creating a social media calendar or a plan of action and using apps and shortcuts to make it easier, especially when you're in the job search, this can be a great time saver. You can post using something like Hootsuite, which is free. You can post tweets that go out through the day, making it seem like you're an active participant, sharing your expertise all while you're at work, and you're not taking away from time at work. So we can get into more of that. A calendar is a great idea, so that you're keeping, you can use it so that you're keeping up to date, so that you're looking at tying your activity into holidays or events that are happening within a month. But again, if that's something that you're interested in, I'm happy to talk through that with you at another time.
Okay, so before we answer some questions that have been coming through, and feel free to send them in, we thought we would close our remarks portion of the webinar with a list of some of our fabulous faves. So Anthony's going to show you a couple from Twitter and Facebook, and I'll go over a couple of LinkedIn profiles that we think are unique or sort of stand out in one way or another.
So the first one that I thought I'd show you is an alum from the Communication and Media program. His name's Bobby Daniels. He graduated about 1.5 years ago, and while he was here, he was in an active job search. And he uses Twitter a lot. I know from knowing him that he's interested in film, he's interested in media and current events. And I thought I'd show it because I think he uses a good mix of different kinds of posts. So he retweets often different videos or GIFs, and then he makes his own, writes his own text. So I think that, he does a good job of mixing sort of favoriting, tweeting his own original content and retweeting content. Some of it is within his field of film. Others have to do with random muses that he has for the day. Sometimes it's wrestling. So I think that this is a good example of an account that tries to successfully maintains professional decorum, but also he's active and it shows his personality. Another person that I wanted to show you on Twitter this is Eric Stoller, and he's basically what I would consider an expert in the area of social media and higher education. He's somebody that I follow, because I know that the content that he's putting out is going to be relevant to my work. So I do have him in a list, so I'll go and I'll look at his content regularly. And I think, again, he does a good job of mixing humor with professional news that I wanna know about. And it's a mix of different media that he's using, which is good because it captures your attention. So here's an article on achieving the engagement with LinkedIn. So actually, I'm going to take this opportunity to retweet this, showing him that I'm still engaged with him and that I'm following what he's doing. But it's also doing again that I can come back here and I can look for Eric Stoller's article later when I have time to read it. And then the last account that I wanted to show you was on Facebook. And this is Brian Mitra. He's the Dean of Students at Student Affairs at Kingsborough Community College. So he's part of the CUNY system, and he is, again, somebody I would consider an expert in higher education and student affairs. He's a good example of somebody that I met out at a professional conference here at CUNY. We had an opportunity to speak afterwards, and later that day when I got back to the office, I friend requested him. He accepted, and so I've been able to maintain a professional contact with him. And I've had very little in-person contact with him, but I do exchange comments. I like his articles. I might share them on Facebook. So it's showing that I have a level of engagement with him, and that I do think and I value his contribution to the field. I also think that Brian does a good job of mixing his personal and professional life. This is his personal Facebook account. Likely he has lists, and likely he's sharing different things with his public and private relationships. But this is what I'm seeing, and I like it. It shows that he has personality. It shows that he is approachable. He's the Dean of Students, but he is more often than not photographed with students having a great time in some learning engagement event, which makes me really want to potentially work with him someday. Shannon?
Okay, so I'm just going to show a couple of LinkedIn profiles that I think, have some great ideas. The first of those is Neil Rogers. He is an alum from CUNY SPS. He has, he's done a really nice job with his LinkedIn profile. He has an interesting and unique cover photo and sort of a quirky profile photo as well. He has information about his experience and his previous jobs. He also does a really nice job because he does have some experience working in design and print and the creative fields, where he's taken the opportunity that LinkedIn provides to show some samples and some portfolios of whether it's work he's designing on his own or for a company where he's worked previously. And I really like how he's done so to show throughout his career some examples of his work. Another really strong profile that I really like a lot is Yolanda Ransom. And Yolanda is also a CUNY SPS graduate. She runs a consulting business. So certainly as an entrepreneur and business owner, tools like LinkedIn are crucial to business. And I think Yolanda also, much like Brian Mitra, as Anthony showed, does a nice job, even on her LinkedIn, of allowing her sort of personality to show, but also keeping a lot of professional and important content on the site. She does a great job with sharing sort of anecdotes and inspirational quotes that are sort of personal and show her personality, but also relate to her consulting business. I think she also does a really nice job by sharing media and different types of things that make her profile really engaging, and they make people really want to look more closely at her profile. And then finally, lastly, I wanted to show the profile of one of CUNY's top female leaders, the Associate Vice Chancellor here at CUNY, Andrea Shapiro Davis. I attended the Women's Leadership Conference a year or so ago and was very inspired after hearing her speak. And I remember at that event, I went up and introduced myself. And then during a conference break, I sent her a connection request on LinkedIn and said, I just met you. I really enjoyed your presentation. Will you please connect with me? And she accepted it later that day. And I was thrilled to have really taken that step to reach out to her and then connect with her virtually as well. And I mention this because I want to encourage all of you to do the same. And I think that a lot of times people are happy to connect with you on platforms such as LinkedIn because it's not threatening, but it's also a really good way for you to connect with people and expand your network professionally. So again, I think her profile is a really good one. You can also see that she's engaged with the CUNY community, even though she's in a top level leadership position. And I think that that's nice to see just from looking at her LinkedIn profile. So we've gotten a couple of questions in. And so I think at this point, Anthony and I are going to take the last about 5 minutes or so to see what we can do to address some of these questions. I see Anthony's got a couple of them. Do you want to go ahead and get started?
Yeah, there's a couple of questions that are all kind of around the same issue of which sites are best and which sites to avoid. I think that in terms of a job search, where keep in mind that we're talking about social media for job search. LinkedIn is the best, hands down. And then Facebook and Twitter. I think any other site after that is only if you're comfortable using social media and you want to use social media. Something like Instagram, Snapchat, if you're very interested in photography and taking photos with your iPhone and you want to share them a lot, then absolutely be on those sites. But if you're only talking about job search, I would say LinkedIn and then Facebook and Twitter. And in terms of using an app, there's a question about, which sort of platform can you use to help you if you're posting on multiple platforms. So like in terms of a publishing platform, I use Hootsuite because it's free and it's easy. I know there's others out there like Buffer. I think the answer is which one are you comfortable with? It really boils down to I started using Hootsuite, so that's the one I'm most comfortable with. They all basically do the same thing. So pick the one that you're most comfortable with and use that one.
Thanks, Anthony. I haven't taken the time to use some of those types of tools right now, but every time I hear Anthony talk about it, it makes me think that maybe I should use some of those tools to make things a little bit easier and more streamlined. So I've got a couple questions about LinkedIn. I'll go ahead and address those. Something that came in earlier is about cover letters. And I had shown you on LinkedIn to use the LinkedIn Easy Apply function where it had the option to include your resume, which I definitely suggest. I am not 100% certain, but I think that in some of those, you may actually be able to submit a cover letter if the company has indicated that they would like to receive them. But I think that that's probably rare in using LinkedIn Easy Apply. My suggestion to you is to use the LinkedIn Easy Apply and submit your resume, but make a note of who it is that posted that job, or if there are any connections you have at that particular organization. And then from there, send a message to that person and say, hi, I just applied to a job at your organization. I'm very much interested in the position and here is why. And sort of use that as your mechanism for giving an introductory sort of brief, short cover letter in terms of supporting your application without actually sending a lengthy cover letter. I hope that answers your question. I hope that whoever did ask this question, let me know if you wanted to talk further about it, just reach out to me and we can sort of figure it out together. I don't know the absolute answer to that. The other question that I got is sort of about connecting with people and what is the etiquette in terms of if you ask someone to connect with you, what happens if they don't? And, you know, these are really great questions. And I think that it's something I think about pretty frequently in using LinkedIn. You know, because of the work that I do and I work in career coaching, I use my LinkedIn site very actively in my job in terms of referring students and alumni who I work with people who are in my own network, whether they're professional or sort of personal connections that are also professional colleagues. I use my LinkedIn very much on a professional basis. My Facebook, I like to keep separate and use personally. But when it comes to LinkedIn, I think you should sort of follow the same types of guidelines that you might follow in real life. If you're interested in sort of connecting with someone on LinkedIn and you send them a connection request, tell them why. You have the opportunity in LinkedIn to say to a person when you send them the invitation, why are you connecting with them? So when I sent Andrea Shapiro Davis an invitation to connect with me, I said, I just met you earlier today. I really enjoyed the remarks that you made before lunch. Would you please connect with me so that I can continue to follow your career? And so I think that she probably met 50 people that day because her remarks were very inspirational. But I think that because I took the time to just put a sentence or two about why I was interested in connecting with her, she accepted that request. Now, if she decided to not accept that request and ignore it, I won't know. It won't necessarily say to me, this person ignored your request and here's why. She just basically won't become part of my network. And what will happen is if you start to invite tons and tons of people to connect with you and they don't know you and they indicate that to LinkedIn, LinkedIn will eventually stop allowing you to ask people to connect with you. So that's why I typically recommend that you just take a moment to ask or to explain to a person why it is that you're connecting with them if they won't absolutely know who you are and understand why. The other thing to keep in mind with that is that certain people approach LinkedIn in a very open way, and they're happy to connect with anyone and everyone who reaches out to connect with them. Other people are a little bit more hesitant to connect with people that they don't know at all. So I think that if you do take the time to ask someone to connect with you and you explain to them why you're interested in connecting, if they still say no, I don't want you to be discouraged, because I think that a lot of people use LinkedIn very readily for job search and they're happy to expand their network. It's also very useful to research people on LinkedIn, and I think that I like to know who is looking at my profile, so I have my settings so that if I look at someone's profile page, they will be able to see that I have done that, but I like to be able to see that they've looked at mine as well. And I think it's okay if you're looking around on LinkedIn and someone sees that you've looked at their profile. I think it's okay. That way they know that you're doing your homework and you're taking the time to find out more about them. And again, if from there you decide to connect with them, just explain to them why, and you'll more than likely be able to connect with that person.
I had another question about ePortfolios, the availability of ePortfolios. Every CUNY SPS student has the ability to get an ePortfolio account, whether your faculty in your classes are using them or not, and they do remain active when you become an alumni. If you're an alumni and you never used it, I'm not sure about the availability there, but I'm happy to connect you with the person who coordinates ePortfolios here. So just reach out to me by email or phone after the webinar, and we'll get that answer for you.
Well, I think that concludes the questions that we've gotten for today, and I'm realizing that we've talked 4 minutes beyond 1:30, so we certainly appreciate all of you joining us today and listening to what we've had to say about the various social media tools that can be used for professional development and job search. Once again, I'm Shannon Gallo, and I presented with my colleague Anthony Sweeney today, and we hope that you'll search for us on social media and follow CUNY SPS and reach out to us for any assistance with using your social media profiles, and we hope you have a good day.
Bye.